Hello, this is Professor Brown Cedarburg, and let's take some time to look at a for each statement, also known as an enhanced for loop. I've outlined a short program here to demonstrate our for each statement. Now, a for each statement can be used to iterate through any collection, a collection such as an array. So here I've declared an array of ints. I've named it my array, and I've populated it with these values 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Now, I can iterate through an array or a collection using a counter-controlled for loop, as I've done here, declaring the int I, giving it a value of 0, and controlling my loop with this. As long as I is less than myArray.length, I'll continue through my loop, I'll iterate through it, and then I'll increment I each time I complete that loop. And within the loop, I'm simply printing out the element that I find in my array at position I. So I'll iterate through the entire loop. And this is a standard counter-controlled for loop. Now, instead of using a standard counter-controlled loop, what I could have done is used a for each statement, as I've done here. Now, with a for each statement, I have the statement that sets how I'll control my iteration, and that's here with for, then the parameter, that is the element, each element within the array, and what I'll refer to that element as, and the type of the element, and then a full colon, and then the collection that I'm iterating through. So here's my for each statement. I'm going to iterate through my array, referring to every element in my array as element in array. Each one of those elements is an int. So my statement is for, and then within parentheses, int, element in array, full colon, my array, close parentheses. And what I'm doing within this loop is simply printing out each one of those elements. So I'm passing to system.out.print each element that I find in my collection, my array, as I iterate through that collection. And so each one of the elements will be printed out. Now notice the difference here. I'm not referring to any index. I'm referring to this element. Right? Each one of them will be aliased by element in array. And as I iterate through, this will go from one element to the next to the next. Much as I did here in my standard counter-controlled for loop, but you'll see in my standard counter-control for loop, I'm using I, the index I. So the difference is that I'm not using the index, as I am here. I'm just grabbing each element and processing it. Now, the advantage of this statement, the for each statement, is that I won't have an out-of-bounds error because I'm not using a counter. So it's just going to grab each element, and as it grabs each element, I can't have that out of bounds. I'm not using this index. That's an advantage. Disadvantage is that with a for each statement, I can only access the elements. I can't change them. With a for standard counter-controlled for loop, I can access and change the elements. With a for each, I can only access. So it has some advantages, it has some disadvantages, but it's a very, very useful tool for iterating through any collection. Thank you.